In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I turned a raw vocal that sounds like this.
What goes around like the sound thoughts in my head
Into this.
One face in time passes by like the love song in your head. 'Cause I've been spending my time. What goes around comes back around again. 'Cause I've been wasting my life.
Then stick around to the end and hopefully you guys get a bit of insight into what I do, how I do it, and what a vocal production looks like. So I had a few comments from my previous video about lack of context. Hopefully this provides a bit more context about how the Brauerize method would fit into a full track. Obviously, I've got the Brauerize method sort of minimized in the corner over here. It might be that I actually completely hide it, which is the pressing H and then hiding all of these like this and then pressing H again. I won't do it, but that's how you would do that. And it's pretty simple, straightforward. Once you've got your lead vocals going through that Brauerize method, you're just treating your lead vocal summing area like your vocal track, and everything else is completely normal. In terms of making your harmonies fit at a good level with the Brauerize method, it's actually probably easier because you've got such a well-leveled lead vocal that you don't need a lot of automation or processing to get your backing vocals to work nicely. So let's jump into the session. The first thing to note is that it's quite a large session. I've color-coded everything and I've given an arrangement at the top in color. These things seem like maybe quite irrelevant little details, but trust me, when you're doing this all the time, being able to jump to the correct part of the project really easily is really, really important. So don't underestimate it. Okay, so with this song, a bit of background. This was a track given to me by the artist that you just heard singing there at the beginning. And the mix reference was Just Pretend by Bad Omens, which is a fantastic track. And having a mix reference like that, there's also a vocal a cappella on YouTube. So I was able to listen to the original professional vocal a cappella, which is really, really useful when that's exactly what I'm trying to do for this track. He was also happy for me to have a lot of creative freedom, which is why I've chosen this track for you guys to listen to. So yeah, let's jump in. Everything in pink is lead vocals, and it's stuff that was recorded in my studio by the artist. Everything in pink is the artist. Everything in blue is actually my vocals, but we'll get into those a bit later on. The nice thing about my setup is that I've got a summing lead vocal area, which is something that I broke down in my last video about the Brauerize method. And by soloing, you can see what is being sent directly to that lead vocal area because it's still available. It's still in pink when I press solo. And everything that isn't is still grey. So you can kind of get a good visual representation of what's being sent there. Basically, everything being sent there are lead vocals that are going through the Brauerize method. So they're going through this area here, the no output section. So all of these tracks, lead verse, for example, is being sent to bus 5, which is the no output channel. So you can see it says bus 5 there. That is the input of the no output channel. And it's being sent to bus 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, which is going through my distressor, 1176, LA2A, Fairchild, and Poltec. And unlike the previous version that I showed you in the other video, in this version I've also done a bit of a level balance to get the correct ratios of each compressor and EQ that I wanted. So that's sort of the first stage. So let's have a listen to the lead vocal on its own.
I try my best, but sometimes that's not enough. And sometimes it feels like I'm so out of touch. I've tried my best, and sometimes it gets to me, making peace with memories at the back of my mind. I know it hurts, but still, what goes around like the sound thoughts in my head. One face in time passes by like the love song in your
there's a lot more energy, as you can see, in these choruses. So I had to do a bit of different stuff, like a few different EQ moves in this. I've got obviously a much lower output on the compressors that I'm using on the tracks. So although it might look, if you see here on the verse track, I've got quite a few plugins going on. I have a similar number of plugins going on, but the EQ settings and the compression settings will be different based on the amount of energy being used, being sung here. On top of that, the performance is in a different register completely in the chorus, so it just requires a different job really. And sometimes with those higher, more aggressive vocals, you can get some resonances that really stick out and that you need to kind of quell. So took a bit of subtractive EQ work on that. So I can show you a quick look at some of this stuff. So we've got reverse reverb here. Okay, so I've got quite a few of those going on in the track. Okay, and then the final thing I'll mention about the lead vocals. Firstly, I've got all my plugins here. Then it's going through this Brauerize method. Again, if that's something you want to know more about, then please feel free to go back to the previous video. The lead vocals are being sent then, the lead vocal summing area is being outputted to the main vocal bus, which is up here, which is the closed brackets, open closed brackets. And if we go all the way down to the bottom here, you'll also see that I have all of my parallel processing going on as well. So I've got my parallel compression, I've got a doubler, a delay, a short, and a long reverb. So there's quite a lot of stuff going on, and I like to have it in the mix window and on the main page as well. That's specific to me. Not everyone has to do that. I just like having it available and visible so that I don't forget about it during a mix. So just so that you guys are aware as well, the parallel compression and all the doubling and these kind of effects, they are being sent out via this lead vocal track. So I've got these on here. It's from the lead summing area. So as I said before, once the vocal has gone through the Brauerize method, the vocal will then be treated as if it's a brand new vocal in a new track, and that is my summing lead vocal track. So I might add some more effects and some more processing, and I always end it with a gain knob at the end, which is where I do my automation for volumes. I don't do it on the track itself from the volume slider, and that's because if I want to change the overall volume of something, I can use that slider, but I've still got the automation being done via the gain area. As you can see, I'm sending everything out via these are my parallel sends to the parallel compression, delay, doublers, and all those kind of things. I'm not going to go into much detail. I've shown you this before, but yeah, these are some of the different things I have available. All right, so we've had a quick look at the lead vocals. We're now going to jump in to the backing vocals. So I've split the backing vocals up into verse and chorus backing vocals. So you can see I've got two summing areas. I've got a summing verse BVs, and I've got a sum of chorus BVs down here as well. It depends on the song. You might not need to do this. In this case, I thought that the sound that I was going for with the chorus was very much that the lead vocal and these backing vocals are one thing. It's like one sort of homogeneous sound. It's like almost like a vocoder kind of effect, right? Whereas with the verses, I wanted those other vocals to sound like supporting vocals. So it's a slightly different effect I was going for. So let's have a listen to the verse first of all on its own. So I've actually recorded myself some doubles, which is what I've got up here in the light blue. Then I've got a pink vocal, which is a copy of the lead vocal, and it's been pitched up. So let's have a quick listen to all of this.
I try my best, but sometimes it's not enough. And sometimes it feels like I'm so out of touch. I try my best, but sometimes it gets to me. Making peace with memories at the back of my mind.
Okay, so it's very tight. That was kind of what I was going for this song. Based on the mix reference, it was very much sort of an artificial sound. We weren't going for a really nice natural choral kind of sound. This is very, very tight and processed. And I think we've achieved that. I've definitely quite heavily tuned it and very, very well timed everything. That's a mixture of making sure you get the recording right, first of all, and then doing any minor editing that you need to do to it afterwards. And I'd say, again, being organized with it. So I knew that I wanted to emphasize certain phrases in there. And I've doubled every single one. So each harmony I've sung twice. So, for example, we can have a listen to these ones.
Sometimes it gets to me.
And then we can add these ones in as well.
Sometimes it gets to me.
And then I thought that it would be cool for the second time round for that harmony to have an extra one as well.
At the back of my mind.
And it's quite dissonant there. I thought I'd quite like something a bit more jazzy, a bit more interesting. And it does work based on the mix reference I was given. There were some sort of jazzy sounds going on. So the other thing is that actually when you put this in the mix with the backing track, which we'll show you in a minute, a lot of this is lost anyway. It's putting the detail and the effort in is very important, but it's important to also remember that a lot of it is going to kind of be very much in the background, and it's there to bolster the lead vocal, but a listener might not actually even know that it's there. However, if you were to mute it, then they'd be thinking there's something missing. So it's important to take the time to do all these lead vocals and to create all these harmonies, but don't be disheartened if you feel like they're kind of not being heard when you actually create the full mix. It still adds something. It adds an energy that if you take it away, you can feel it. So that's also true of this whisper that I added here. So I'll show you that very quickly as well.
I know it is, but still.
So if I play the whole thing there with that, you can hear the whisper in there.
I know it hurts, but still.
Cool. The only thing I'd say is, in general, backing vocals, you want to remove some of that low end information, sort of, 200 to 300. You actually might want to filter out so that your lead vocals have a bit more room, especially with that fundamental frequency. You can really hear that over the top of your backing vocals. Obviously, I use a bit of panning as well with the backing vocals, but there's not actually too much going on. It's just been panned, a bit of EQ to brighten it up and remove some of that low end, and then compressed just like I do with my lead vocals. If you're lucky enough to have the amount of processing power that I have, then you can put quite a lot of plugins on. If not, you can do more of that work on the verse bus area rather than on the channel itself, but preferably you can do a bit of both for flexibility reasons. And then I'd say one of the last things, if you've got a lot of vocals all layered on top of each other, just having a knowledge of what frequencies are likely to build up based on either your own voice or just any human voice at all, you get a lot of mid-range in a vocal. So if you add a lot of vocals together, then you're going to find that the mid-range really starts to swell. So you might want to have a little dip in the 1000 area, for example, on every single vocal, so that it doesn't build up by the time you've got to the bus level. On top of that, for my voice particularly, when I'm singing quite loud and high, any E sound is really aggressive around 3K for me. So I just immediately will get rid of that. No questions asked. I'll do that before I even start because I know it's going to be a problem. So these are things just that you can start to learn about your own voice, or if you're working with an artist quite a lot, then you can start to learn about what their voice does on a certain microphone and try and eradicate those issues really early on. So now we can go into the chorus backing vocals, and then I'll talk a bit about the processing. So I've got them in two sections just because there's an overlap here, so I couldn't really put them all on the same track. There's also an issue of different volumes, so with that I've actually automated. So I've increased the volume by 3 decibels for the second. This is like the post-chorus, arguably, so I've increased the volume of that to really help those stand out a bit more. So let's have a quick listen to those without the lead vocal there.
What goes around comes around, like the sad thoughts in my head. One phase in time passes by, like the love song in your head. 'Cause I've been spending my time, 'cause I've been wasting my life.
I think the important thing to know is that you don't actually have to be a musical genius to come up with some really cool harmonies. I think these sound pretty cool, and I don't have a great music theory knowledge. Some people do, and it can maybe be a faster process and like a more targeted process. But if you know what sounds good, then you're going to get there eventually. It's just about trial and error, and maybe using some plugins like Nectar that have harmony engines built in, so you can test out stuff, do some sort of trial runs of some vocals very quickly. You can also use Melodyne to start mixing up some different harmony ideas. In this case, I really didn't know where I was going with it. And as you can see, actually, in the first chorus section, I've got some areas where I'm not singing the whole time. So I'll play you that very quickly.
Goes around, comes around in my head, passes by in your head.
So if there's a particular moment that you think needs a bit more emphasis, then you might want to just record that bit and nothing else. You don't have to have vocals going on the entire time. Another cool trick I'd say when thinking about harmonies that you might want to add to a song, I would suggest, if you want it to be a bit more jazzy, a really cool trick is just sing one note. Sing a note that you know is in the key of the song and that will always be in the key no matter what. So like the tonic, if the song's in C major, sing a C, and it will probably fit all the way through that whole section of the chorus. So sing that one note all the way through, and what it will do is create some quite interesting, maybe even clashy sounds at times, which might be quite interesting. And again, it's trial and error, but I think it can work quite well. The other thing is to have some tracks where the vocal will change at different times. So for example, I think down here I can show you an example of that. Let's have a listen.
Bad thoughts in my head.
Yeah, so I have one going head and the other one is going head. So one's changing, one's staying the same. That kind of thing can create a bit of interest. And yeah, again, trial and error, but it works out really well in the end. Sometimes there are some issues. For example, if you're getting quite jazzy sounding chords in a track that really doesn't suit that kind of style, then that's something to be aware of. But if you've got a good ear and you have a good understanding of your genre, then it shouldn't be a problem. And if you are struggling with that, then maybe you just have to listen to a few more songs in the genre, really have some good mix references. That's where having this incredible mix reference to go by was incredibly helpful for this song. And there were quite a few iterations before I got to this point. So let's have a listen to the vocoder now at the bottom. So I basically wanted a tiny bit more width and aggression out of the lead vocal. So I added a vocoder. This is a copy of the original lead vocal up at the top there. I also used a different take of his lead vocal in order to just create a bit of extra width and variation, so that it doesn't sound like a double, or it doesn't sound like there are two of him singing, but it does make it just a bit more separated from the original. So let's have a listen to the vocoders now.
What goes around like the sad thoughts in my head. What facing time passes by like the love song in your head. 'Cause I've been spending my time. 'Cause I've been wasting my life.
So I used vocal synth with only the Polyvox enabled. Really cool plugin if you haven't tried it. And then this is an Abbey Road original. So this is actually a physical unit of the real ADT was created in Abbey Road. And then this is the sort of software equivalent. And it's basically duplicating a vocal or duplicating any signal and then modulating one side versus the other in different ways and different speeds to create a flange effect, phasing effect, and it creates some nice width. So that's definitely a cool plugin, and I think it works a lot better than some of the built-in plugins that I've got in Logic, so definitely worth looking into from Waves. So when you add that in with the lead vocal, let's have a quick listen to that.
Your head, 'cause I've been spending my time. What goes around comes back around again. 'Cause I've been wasting my life.
So it's quite subtle, but it does add a bit of width to the track. There is a bit of width in the lead vocal coming from the doubler as it is, and also from the short reverb, and the delay is creating a bit of width as well. So that's something to be noted. Let's have a listen to the short reverb on its own, actually, shall we? Let's have a quick listen to that. So that's very subtle. I actually use that as a tonal decision-making thing, really. That was less about a sort of time-based effect. It was less of like a room sound, and it was actually more about a particular tone that I was looking for. And that's quite an interesting thing to think about reverbs in that way. Sometimes they're to create a space for a vocal to sit in, and other times it can be used to actually add a layer of tonal change to the vocal as well. So it does also, it has a, you know, added elements of both of those in there. The long reverb as well. Let's have a quick listen to that now. So as you can see here, I've got the Valhalla is being used here in a bright hall setting for the vocal, but I'm then using a compressor which is being sidechained via compressor to the lead vocal itself. So what that achieves is that the reverb will be compressed and basically reduced in volume while the vocal is actually in full force. And then when it comes to the end of a phrase, it will allow the reverb to come back up to normal volume, and it's sort of, you get this swelling feeling. And also it just means that you've got a bit less reverb in the way when you're trying to hear a nice clean vocal sound. So that's a really nice effect you can use. On top of that, I'm also using an EQ just to boost the frequencies that I think for this particular reverb were sticking out a bit more. I wanted to stick out a bit more, and I definitely didn't need anything in this low area. That's quite a normal thing that you'll see mixing engineers do. They'll cut out a lot of the unnecessary low end from a reverb that just gets in the way of a lot of other stuff. So yeah, you'll definitely see a lot of people processing after a reverb. Compression and EQ can be quite useful. Even saturation before or after a reverb can be quite useful as well. So on a larger scale, some of the things that I've been doing in this track, obviously I've got all of my vocals going through this one folder here, and I've split those up into a lead vocal bus, my verse BV bus, and my chorus BV bus. And I've got a few things like these things down here, these harms and the vocoder, that are being sent straight to the final bus here. Okay, so not everything is going directly through any particular summing area. It could just be going straight to the vocal bus. It's quite important as well that you don't want to necessarily over-process the final bus. I've got a tiny bit of compression, but mainly it's about the Studer A800 that I've put on there. That is just creating a bit of final character. That's how you would be recording a vocal bus if you were doing it on a mixing desk and through tape, for example. So it's kind of a cool effect to do something on that, and creates a bit more character. And it's about adding a bit of saturation in small doses throughout your mix by sending it through multiple different areas. The main thing that I wanted to touch on is that when I solo or mute any particular bus, everything associated to that bus will be soloed and muted. So, for example, with my chorus BVs, I have a parallel compression for the BVs specifically. If I were to solo the chorus, the chorus backing vocals, the parallel compression BVs will be part of that solo. And if I were to mute it, the parallel compression BVs would be muted as well. That's because the output of these BVs is being sent to a different place, and so you don't want to hear it, right? But it's being processed via the summing chorus BVs area, right? As you can see here, I've got that. That's the parallel compression BVs. There is bus 20. So I'm deciding to get my parallel compression done at the chorus BV summing point. So if I were to mute that, then all of that parallel compression would stop. That's also true for the reverbs and delays. So if you mute, you've muted everything. You don't get any sort of ethereal reverb sounds coming through when you're not expecting it. The final thing in this is that I'm also doing quite a lot of upward compression. So if I have a look at the lead vocals here, I've got an upward compressor working. This is actually the Logic compressor, and if you put it in vintage FET mode, you can actually flip the threshold and everything around, and the ratio as such that you end up with this upward compression style graph, which means that you can actually lift up the volume of the quiet stuff rather than actually compressing stuff top down. You're doing a bottom up compression, which is it's really useful for getting some of that extra sort of oomph out of your track. In this particular case, when you're listening to the vocals on their own, it does sound like some of those P's, T's, and S's are quite aggressive. But when you listen to it in the context of the track, it really starts to make sense, and you feel like you need that added pressure, upward pressure coming from those lower from that compression in order to really make those vocals stand out a bit more. So let's have a listen to it very briefly now with the instrumental in. This is a demo instrumental, so please don't judge it too much. It's going to be completely remade based on the vocals. That's actually what the artist wanted for this. He wanted me to have free reign over this vocal mix in order that he could then recreate a track to go with the vocals. It's maybe a slightly odd way of doing things, but for this track, I think it works out quite well. So let's have a listen anyway to this as it is.
What goes around, like the sound thoughts in my head. What faces up, passes by, like the love song in your head. 'Cause I've been spending my time, come back around again. 'Cause I've been wasting my life.
Cool, and now we'll have a quick listen to the beginning actually as well. So let's drop you in there.
Try my best, but sometimes it's not enough, and sometimes it feels like I'm so out of touch. I tried my best, and sometimes it gets to me, making peace with memories at the back of my mind. I know it hurts, but still, what goes around goes
Okay, so you get a rough idea of how that sounds now. Okay, so the final thing I'll talk about is automation. That's an area, so if I just click on automation now, you'll see that I do a lot of my automation not on the tracks themselves, but on the bus tracks. That's for very good reason. It's because I'm sending multiple lead vocals to one bus track. So I don't really want to send different levels to the same bus, which has compression on it, because then you're going to simply send stuff in at a signal level that is too low or too high for the compressor. So I want to have everything going through the compressor at the right level and then change the level after the fact, after the compressor. So that's why I'm doing my lead vocal reverb, sends, and all that kind of stuff is being automated at the lead vocal level. I'm also doing gain at that level. I'm not doing it with the volume fader. I'm doing it with the gain plugin, which I have at the end of my chain. And I will show you what that looks like further down here. I've got chorus BVs. I've actually turned the gain all the way to 0 when the BVs aren't on. And that's because I've got a few saturation plugins that are creating some noise. And the only way to reduce that or to stop it from happening is to just turn it off altogether. And so that's what I decided to do for that. But yeah, I hope this has given you a bit of an idea as to how I work and what a session looks like for me. If you guys did feel like you got something out of this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps. This is only my second video so far. I plan on making one every week. So yeah, if you want to get involved in this community and you've got any comments or anything you'd like to add, just drop it down in the comments, and I'm going to try and respond to everything individually. And I've also got a website, studio32.live, so feel free to check out the actual finished mix of the vocals on there as well. Yeah, see you in the next video.